Here's a story about why New Zealand had an official wizard. It's a real story about a person who took on a very unusual role and how a whole country went along with it. This isn't a fairy tale. It's about a man, a city, and a unique kind of magic. His name is Ian Brackenbury Channell, but most people know him as the Wizard. He wasn't born in New Zealand, he came from England. His journey to becoming an official wizard started a long way from there. Ian was born in London in 1932. Well, he grew up like a lot of kids in England, but he was always a bit different. He went to university. He studied many things. He was quite smart. He got degrees in different subjects. He was an academic for a while. He even taught at universities. He spent time in Australia too. He was a lecturer at the University of New South Wales. Then he moved to Melbourne. He worked at the University of Melbourne. He was always thinking about big ideas. He was interested in society. He was interested in how people lived. He wondered about culture and art. He wasn't always a wizard, of course. That came later. In Australia, he started exploring different ways of living. He was part of a movement. People were questioning old ways. They were looking for new ideas. He even started something called a living organization in Melbourne. It was about creating a new kind of social structure. It was about breaking rules. It was about thinking freely. This group did some unusual things. They challenged norms. They wanted to make people see things differently, but Australia didn't quite stick. Ian was looking for something else. He wanted a place where his ideas could really grow. He wanted a place that might be more open. He wanted a blank slate in a way, and that's when he looked at New Zealand. And New Zealand, in the 1970s, was a smaller country. It was still developing its own identity. It was a place known for being a bit independent. It was seen as a bit quirky. It was less rigid than some older countries. This appealed to him. So, in the mid-1970s, Ian Brackenbury Channell arrived in Christchurch, New Zealand. He wasn't wearing a wizard's hat yet. He was just a man with a lot of ideas, but he soon started to change. He began to experiment with his persona. He started to think of himself as a living artwork. He saw the city as a stage. He wanted to shake things up. He wanted to make people think about magic. Not real magic like spells and potions, but the magic of life, the magic of perspective, the magic of humor. He started to dress differently. He grew a beard. He started wearing long robes. At first, it might have seemed like a bit of a joke, or maybe he just wanted to stand out. But it became more than that. It became his identity. He started calling himself the Wizard. He started acting the part. He would appear in public spaces. He would talk to people. He would perform. He wanted to bring a sense of wonder to the everyday. He saw himself as an agent of chaos and beauty. He wanted to challenge the boring. He wanted to make life more interesting. He did this with a lot of thought. And he wasn't just doing it for fun. He had a philosophy behind it. He believed that society needed more imagination. It needed more joy. It needed someone to remind people not to take everything so seriously. And New Zealand, a country finding its feet, seemed like the perfect place for this experiment. He brought with him a mind full of knowledge and a desire to connect with people in a truly unique way. This was just the start of his transformation, from an academic to a public figure. From Ian to the Wizard, and soon Christchurch would get to know him very well. When the Wizard arrived in Christchurch, he quickly made his presence known. He didn't just blend in. That wasn't his style. He chose Cathedral Square as his main stage. This is a central spot in the city. It's where people gather. It's where the famous Christchurch Cathedral stands. This was the perfect place for someone who wanted to be seen. He started doing his thing. He would stand in the square. He would wear his robes. He would give speeches. They weren't political speeches, not really. They were more like talks about life, about the universe, about magic. He would talk about the importance of imagination. He would tell jokes. He would engage with anyone who stopped to listen, and people did stop. At first, maybe out of curiosity to see this strange man, but then they stayed because he was interesting. He was funny. He was smart. His wizardly acts were often symbolic. He wasn't casting real spells. He was blessing things. He would bless new buildings. He would bless local events. Sometimes he would just stand there and observe. He became a fixture. People started to expect to see him. He was a constant presence in the square. The public reaction was mixed, as you can imagine. Some people thought he was completely mad. They saw him as a street performer, a bit of an annoyance. They would walk past him and shake their heads. They didn't get it. But a lot of other people loved him. The students especially really liked him. They found him cool. They found him inspiring. He was an icon of free thinking. He represented something different. In a city that could sometimes be a bit conservative, he was a splash of color. The local authorities weren't always happy. The Christchurch City Council had rules. They had bylaws about public spaces. They didn't like people gathering and performing without permission. So there were conflicts. The council tried to move him on. They told him he couldn't do what he was doing. They said he was causing a nuisance. They wanted him gone from Cathedral Square. But the wizard was persistent. He didn't back down. He argued his case. He said he was a public service. He said he was bringing joy. He said he was art. He got a lot of public support. People wrote letters to the newspaper. They called the council. They said, leave the wizard alone. They saw him as part of the city. He had already become a character. He was part of Christchurch's story. This public backing was key. It showed the council that he wasn't just some random person. He had an audience. He had fans. His unique way of engaging with people helped too. He was never rude. He was always witty. He was always ready with a clever remark. He made people smile. He made them think. He was a living piece of performance art. He created a sense of community around him. People would gather, listen, and talk about him. Over time, the tide turned. The initial pushback from the authorities started to fade. They realized he wasn't going anywhere, and more importantly, they started to see the value he brought. He was a talking point. He was a tourist attraction. People would come to Christchurch and ask, "Where's the wizard?" He was becoming a local legend. He wasn't just an eccentric anymore, he was an icon. He was part of the fabric of Christchurch. His journey from a quirky newcomer to a beloved figure was well underway. He had made the city his own, and the city in its own way was starting to accept him as one of their own too. The shift from an eccentric character to an official city figure was a big deal. It wasn't just a gradual acceptance, it became a formal decision. The Christchurch City Council did something truly unique. They decided to make the Wizard of New Zealand an official position. This didn't happen overnight. It was a process. As mentioned before, he was already a popular figure. Tourists loved him. Many locals loved him. He was bringing something special to the city. He was a draw. People would come to Cathedral Square just to see him. They would take photos with him. They would listen to his talks. The council started to see that he was an asset. He wasn't just a nuisance anymore. He was good for the city's image. He added character. He made Christchurch stand out. So, in 1982, the Christchurch City Council officially appointed Ian Brackenbury Channell as the Wizard of Christchurch. This was quite a move. It showed a willingness to embrace the unconventional. It showed a sense of humor. It showed that the city was open to new ideas. They didn't just tolerate him, they formalized him. They made him part of the system. What did this official role entail? Well, it wasn't a normal job. There wasn't a list of duties like you'd find in a typical job description. But the idea was that he would continue to do what he was doing. He would perform in public, he would appear at civic events, he would use his unique persona to promote the city. He was to provide acts of wizardry as needed. This included blessing events, offering advice, and generally being the city's magical representative. And yes, there was a salary. He received a small stipend from the council. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was enough to acknowledge his contribution. It was a formal payment for his services. It meant he was literally on the city's payroll. This was a truly remarkable situation. A city council paying someone to be a wizard. It sounds like something from a fantasy book, but it was real. The recognition didn't stop there. The then Prime Minister of New Zealand, Mike Moore, even got involved. In 1990, he wrote a letter to the wizard. He officially recognized him as the Wizard of New Zealand. This was a national endorsement. The Prime Minister himself acknowledged the wizard's unique role. He encouraged him to proceed with your immeasurable magical duties. This elevated the wizard from a local character to a national figure. He wasn't just Christchurch's wizard, he was New Zealand's wizard. The broader national and international reaction to this news was mostly positive. As people found it charming, they found it amusing, it fit with New Zealand's image. New Zealand often portrays itself as a place that's a bit different, a place that's close to nature, a place that values individuality. Having an official wizard just cemented that image. It made the country seem even more unique. It became a point of pride for many New Zealanders. It was quirky, sure, but it was our quirky. He became a symbol of tolerance, a symbol of imagination, a symbol that you don't always have to fit in a box. It showed that a country could have a sense of humor about itself. It showed that there was room for the unconventional. This official embrace wasn't just about one man. It said something about New Zealand's cultural identity. It said they were a country that could appreciate a bit of harmless magic. It was a moment where a city and a nation collectively decided to celebrate someone truly unique. They gave him a title, a salary, and a stage, and he took it, and he ran with it for decades to come. Beyond the robes, the beard, and the hat, the wizard was much more than just a show. He had a deep philosophy. His magic wasn't about special powers, it was about making people think. It was about challenging common ideas. He saw himself as a public intellectual. He was a provocateur. He wanted to shake people out of their everyday routines. His main stage was Cathedral Square. There, he would talk about many things. He'd discuss society, he'd talk about art. He'd speak about the importance of magic in a non-literal sense. He believed that magic was about perspective. It was about seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary. It was about finding joy and wonder. He wanted people to question things. He wanted them to laugh. He wanted them to use their imagination. His public acts often had deeper meanings. For example, he might curse a bad piece of architecture. He would do this with humor, of course, but the underlying message was about valuing good design. Or he might bless a new endeavor. This was his way of offering support and goodwill. He used his persona to comment on the world around him. He wasn't afraid to speak his mind. But he always did it with a touch of wit and a smile. He got involved in various social issues too. He didn't pick sides in the traditional political sense, but he would offer his wizardly commentary. He might speak about environmental issues, he might talk about the importance of community. He used his unique platform to draw attention to things he cared about. He wasn't just a performer. He was a voice, and because he was the wizard, people listened in a different way. His words carried a unique weight. His relationship with the media was excellent. He was a natural for interviews. He always had something interesting to say. He was articulate. He was engaging, he could speak intelligently about complex topics, but he could also be funny and lighthearted. This made him a favorite for journalists. He was always good for a quote, he was always good for a story. And the media helped spread his message. They helped solidify his status as a national treasure. He saw his whole life as a living work of art. His existence was a performance. He was challenging the idea of what a public figure could be. He was showing that you don't need a formal title or a traditional job to contribute to society. You can contribute through imagination, you can contribute through humor, you can contribute by simply being yourself, but an exaggerated, intentional version of yourself. The value he brought to Christchurch and New Zealand went beyond entertainment. Yes, he made people smile. Yes, he made tourists happy, but he also made people think. He encouraged them to pause. He encouraged them to look at the world differently. He reminded them that life doesn't always have to be serious. He brought a sense of lightness and wonder to public spaces. He also cultivated a strong sense of community. People felt a connection to him. He was approachable. He was willing to talk to anyone. He would listen to people's problems. He would offer advice, sometimes serious, sometimes whimsical. He was like a wise elder, but with a magical twist. His magic was truly about human connection. It was about the power of storytelling. It was about the power of belief, not in spells, but in the possibility of a more interesting world. He proved that a simple, persistent performance could have a profound and lasting impact on a city and a nation. He was truly more than just a show. He was a teacher, a philosopher, and a constant reminder that life is full of possibilities. The wizard continued his unique role for many decades. He became an institution. For generations of New Zealanders, especially those in Christchurch, he was just always there. The man in the robes with the long beard in Cathedral Square. But time marches on for everyone, even wizards. As he got older, the physical demands of his public role became more challenging. Standing for hours, giving speeches, engaging with people, it's a lot of work. He was still sharp, still witty, but age has its way. Then came the Christchurch earthquakes. In 2010 and 2011, a series of devastating earthquakes hit the city. The city center was destroyed. The iconic Cathedral Square, his main stage, was severely damaged. The cathedral itself, a symbol of Christchurch, was left in ruins. This changed everything. The square was closed off for years. His performance space was gone. The heart of the city, where he had been a fixture, was broken. The earthquakes had a profound impact on the wizard. He was still there, still trying to keep spirits up. And he still made appearances where he could. But the city had changed. Its focus shifted to rebuilding. The mood was different. It was a time of sadness and recovery. The carefree atmosphere where he had thrived was gone for a while. In 2021, after nearly 4 decades in his official role, the wizard announced he was stepping down. It was a big moment. The Christchurch City Council made the decision not to renew his contract. There were several reasons. Age was certainly one. The changing nature of the city after the earthquakes was another. The council's priorities had shifted. They were looking for new ways to promote the city. They wanted a fresh approach to tourism and public engagement. Maybe the idea of an official wizard, while charming, felt a little out of step with the modern rebuilding city. The decision sparked a debate. Many people were sad. They felt it was the end of an era. They thought the council was wrong to let him go. Others understood the decision. They felt it was time for a change. The wizard himself expressed some disappointment. He felt he still had magic to offer, but he understood the forces at play. In his reflections on his life as the wizard, he always emphasized the joy he brought. He talked about the power of imagination. He spoke about the importance of challenging the mundane. He never saw himself as just an entertainer. He was a philosopher, a social commentator, a performance artist on a grand scale. He created a character that allowed him to connect with thousands of people. He made them smile. He made them think. The legacy he leaves behind is truly unique. He was a one-of-a-kind figure in public service. He proved that eccentricity could not only be tolerated but embraced. He showed that a society could make room for the unconventional. He showed that a city council could have a sense of humor. He became a symbol of New Zealand's cultural identity. A bit quirky, a bit independent, always surprising, he reminds us that simple, persistent performance art can have a profound impact. He showed that you can create your own reality. You can define your own role in the world. And if you do it well, with humor and intelligence, people will often follow along. The Wizard of New Zealand will be remembered. He'll be talked about for years to come. He was a living legend. He was a reminder that life doesn't always have to be so serious. And that sometimes a touch of magic, even if it's just human magic, is exactly what we need. His journey from an academic to an official wizard is a testament to the power of imagination and the willingness of a nation to believe in something truly unique. He will forever be a part of New Zealand's story.